Hello and welcome. Today, we're jumping into the world of multi-state fundraising compliance, which, as you know, is a really critical topic for any nonprofit. We're going to focus specifically on the rules for Mississippi, and this explainer is brought to you with insights from the experts at Ironwood Registrations.
This is exactly what Ironwood Registrations does. They help nonprofits navigate that, confusing web of state-by-state rules so organizations like yours can stay focused on their mission. So let's get into why this is so important.
So many nonprofits believe that once they get that 501c3 determination letter from the IRS, they're pretty much clear to fundraise anywhere in the country. But honestly, that's a really common and potentially costly mistake. Most states, and that includes Mississippi, have their own, totally separate set of rules for soliciting donations.
Okay, let's lay out a clear roadmap for Mississippi's requirements. We'll start with the big one. Do you even need to register? Then we'll look at some common exemptions, walk through the actual registration process, and then wrap up with how to stay compliant year after year.
All right, first up, who actually needs to register? These rules are managed by the Charities Division of the Mississippi Secretary of State, and they're pretty clear about it. If you plan to ask for donations from anyone in Mississippi, you really need to pay attention.
And this is the million-dollar question for so many of us today, right? You've got a Donate Now button on your website, you run campaigns on social media. Does that automatically mean you have to register in Mississippi? Well, the answer is, it depends. Let's break that down.
Here's the main thing to remember. It doesn't matter where your nonprofit is physically located. If your fundraising efforts are reaching people inside Mississippi, the state's rules can absolutely apply to you. So, how does the state figure this out when it comes to online fundraising?
To sort this out, Mississippi uses a standard known as the Charleston Principles, and it really just boils down to two main triggers. Either you're actively targeting people in Mississippi, or, even if you aren't, you receive a significant and recurring level of support from within the state. Let's look at what that means in terms of actual dollars and donors.
So the first key threshold is financial. If your organization receives $25,000 or more in contributions from Mississippi residents in a single fiscal year, you are required to register. And this applies whether you were actively seeking those donations or not. The second threshold isn't about the total amount of money, but the number of people. If you receive contributions from 25 or more individual donors in Mississippi during your fiscal year, that also triggers the registration requirement. This is a really important distinction because even a campaign that brings in a lot of small dollar donations can require you to register. Now, while those rules might seem pretty broad, they don't apply to everyone. So let's take a look at the common exemptions that might allow your organization to fundraise in Mississippi without having to register. The most common exemption has two parts, and you have to meet both of them. First, your organization has to receive less than $25,000 in total contributions annually from all sources. And second, all of your fundraising activities have to be carried out by unpaid volunteers. If you meet both of those conditions, you may be exempt.
But this is crucial. These exemptions are not automatic. You can't just assume you qualify and move on. Most organizations have to proactively file online with the Secretary of State to get an official certificate of exemption. You should think of it as actively proving your exempt status, not just ignoring the registration process.
Beyond that main one, other specific types of organizations like religious groups, schools, and membership organizations might also be exempt. But just be aware, each of these categories has very specific conditions, so it's always best to verify your exact status before you start soliciting.
Okay, so let's say you figured out that you do need to register. What does that initial process actually look like? Well, the good news is it's all handled online through the Mississippi Secretary of State's portal. Before you start, you'll want to gather a few key documents to make the online application go smoothly. This includes things like your formation documents, your IRS determination letter, your most recent Form 990, a list of your officers and directors, and some key financial information. The initial filing fee is just $50. It's a one-time cost for getting registered for the first time, which makes it a relatively low barrier to making sure your organization is fundraising legally within the state. All right, let's talk about financial reporting, because your obligations here are going to scale right along with your fundraising success. Mississippi requires different levels of financial documentation depending on your total annual contributions. So the requirements scale directly with your contributions. For organizations bringing in under $250,000, your standard internal financials are fine. But once you cross that line between $250,000 and $750,000, you'll need a formal reviewed financial statement. And for organizations raising over $750,000, a full independent audit is required. This is a really key area where compliance costs can increase as you grow.
You see, getting registered is just the first step. To maintain your good standing, you have to renew that registration every single year. Let's take a look at what that involves.
Here are the key facts you need to know for your annual renewal. The filing deadline is 4.5 months after your fiscal year ends. The renewal fee is $50 a year. And if you happen to need more time, a 6-month extension is available. It's usually granted automatically if you've also filed for a federal tax extension.
So what happens if you file late? Well, instead of a standard late fee, Mississippi has this unique requirement, the affidavit of non-solicitation. This is basically a sworn statement where you have to disclose any fundraising you did while your registration was expired. The state can then use that information to assess penalties, so it's a really serious document and, frankly, a compelling reason to file on time.
Staying compliant really just boils down to having a good system in place. You need to track your deadlines, continuously monitor your fundraising to see if you cross those Mississippi-specific thresholds, meet your financial reporting duties, and just make sure you're filing the right documents on time.
And this, right here, is the key takeaway. When you manage your compliance proactively, you prevent those last-minute crises, you protect your organization's reputation, and you ensure that you can continue to raise the funds you need to support your mission without any interruption.
So, this all leaves us with a final question for you and your team. Is your compliance strategy proactive or is it reactive? You know, thinking about that can really make all the difference. If you need help managing these requirements, you can learn more from the experts at ironwoodregistrations.com. Thanks for watching.